So I had mice in my house. I would lie awake at night listening to the little pitter-patter of the guys, trying to crawl up the side of my bed to get in there with me. So I got a cat. I didn't have mice anymore. What I also gained was a best friend. I was living in a very small village in rural Honduras where everybody either lived with or lived next door to their family. And what I gained with my tiny little cat was my family. Someone who could be there for me every day. I named her, which is very uncommon. I named her Bella after my aunt. I had a little flea collar that was pink and white, and everybody laughed and called her the little gringa cat. She was the only cat in the village who did not have fleas. I held her on my lap every day sitting outside my house. I brushed her, I bathed her. I went 2.5 hours on a bus down a dirt road to get her special cat food called gati. She slept in the bed with me. Okay, this was mi primer mascota. She was my first pet. This was the biggest deal. Everybody knew she was mi primer mascota. So meanwhile, while all of this was going on, my best friend back in the States had thought, oh, well, my friend's going to go live in Honduras for a couple years. I'm going to go travel too. So she quit her job and she moved to a yoga commune in Hawaii. And at that point in my life, yoga wasn't really a part of it, hadn't really incorporated it, but before I left, she gave me a deck of yoga cards with poses to kind of, remind myself that she was out there doing something really neat. So I'm in my village, hanging out with my cat. I have nothing but time on my hands. So I decided I'm going to translate these yoga cards into Spanish. So most of the village would see me down at the school using the photocopier or over at the internet cafe, typing up the little instructions in Spanish and then Xeroxing the poses so they were all on one page. This was a very big project. I was very excited about it because it took up significant chunks of time. And while all of this was going on, I actually did find some other projects. And one of them was, because I lived at the entrance to a national park, there were a lot of locals who had real day jobs, but on evenings and weekends and when I felt like going for a hike or camping were guides. So if tourists somehow found themselves 9 hours from Tegucigalpa, they could meet up with one of my buddies who was a guide, and he would take them to the caves of Sasmay or over La Picucha or wherever you wanted to go in this beautiful Sierra de Galta National Park. Over time, I really got to get close with these guys. They were, like Bella, my extended family. And they were just incredible men who had families and day jobs, but were super committed to getting to know me and spend time with me and also nature and everything that was out there in the world. So it's about 9 o'clock one night. I'm in my pajamas. The entire rest of the village is already asleep. And I'm getting ready to go to bed when I get a knock at the door. It's not really all that surprising that two of the main guides, Moncho, which is a nickname for Ramon, Moncho and Eddie are knocking on my door and they want to come in, and they're really good friends of mine. So I was like, all right, guys, come in, what's up? And they're really excited. They were like, Karen, we have this. And they have a paperback yoga book from 1972 in Spanish. And they are dying because they're so excited that they have this. And I think about it for a second and then I realize, yoga hasn't really changed in a couple thousand years. I don't think my poses are going to be any different than their book from 1972. So they're just so excited because they've been practicing yoga. And they know that I'm working on this yoga project and they just have to show me what they've been practicing on. I'm like, all right, it's kind of late at night, guys, but okay, fine. So Moncho goes and he picks up a broom and he sweeps my living room so the floor is super clean. And he's like, okay, everybody stand back. And I just want to tell you something kind of important about Moncho. Moncho has what we call in Spanish a panzón. He has a literal beer gut from beer. At this particular time, he was on the wagon, but he has gone off and on the wagon his entire life. So I've seen him pound those beers. So he definitely weighed over 250 pounds. So Moncho's like, all right, Karen, are you ready? This is what I've been working on. And he does the tripod. So he puts his arms, elbows on the ground, arms on the ground, and he leans over. And then he starts to balance his knees and his legs on his arms. And he's doing the tripod. And the guy's gonna do a headstand. This is crazy. So he starts to go up, and then he goes down, and boom! And that's when I see it. He starts to sit up, and his back is covered in blood. And my little gatita is literally running around in circles with blood shooting out the side of her head. She goes down, and I take off. And everybody in the village notices the crazy gringa screaming and crying and running through the street. They also know where I'm going. I'm going to the house of my then Honduran boyfriend. I bang on the door. He lives with his family, as everybody does. Wake everybody up. They've been long asleep. He's the butcher. He has to get up at 4:30 in the morning. So I make this whole ruckus. I wake up the whole house. I can't even function. And all I can say is, Moncho la mato. And all his parents hear is, Moncho killed someone. Moncho's his brother. Not the same Moncho. So his parents are like, okay, one of two things happened to our son. He was killed, or he killed someone. And they're just starting to flip out, and they have these real sad, stoic faces, and they're kind of like looking at me to explain, and I can't function. My boyfriend turns to them and says, no, 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 no. Moncho Bellis, different guy, killed her cat. They were like, what? It's a freaking cat. Who cares? We thought you were talking about our son. That's a person. You have a cat? Who cares? And my boyfriend's like, no, 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 you don't understand. This little gatilla with the little gringo collar. Like, I don't think you really know what this cat meant to her. And it was just, they were so mad. They didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I just felt horrible because I didn't mean to scare them like that. I just didn't know what to say or didn't know what to do. So everybody calms down. And my boyfriend accompanies me back up the hill, back to my house, because I have to go back. And we go inside the house, and Moncho and Eddie cleaned up as best they could. Just gonna leave it at that. Eddie is still in the house, but Moncho is long gone. And Eddie says to me, Karen, Moncho went home because he knows that even though it was an accident, you never want to talk to him again. And I felt horrible. So I went over to Moncho's house. And there he was, and he could not believe that I had come. And I just looked him in the eye, and I said, I know it was an accident. And he just kept going on and on and on. And he just kept saying, Karen, it was truly, truly an accident. I am such an animal lover. I am such a kind-hearted man. You can ask my children. I've never killed another living being in all my life. Remember I said these guys had day jobs? Moncho was a fumigator. So the emotional part of me was willing to forgive, but sort of the logical part of me thought, we're going to have another conversation about what you do later. So I just said, I know it was an accident, okay? I know it was an accident. So I went home, and I put a sign on my door, hubo un accidente. There was an accident. I did not write on the door, Moncho Bellis killed my cat. I was a youth development volunteer, so I had kids coming over the next day for class, and I just put a sign on the door, no hay clases, hubo un accidente, put the cat in a box, had my host dad dig a hole in the backyard. We had a really beautiful ceremony. Little did I know, in the time it took me to walk back from Moncho's house to mine, the entire village had a nickname for him. Till this day, he is still Matagato. He is still cat killer. He's also still a really good friend of mine.